So a few weeks ago, I installed this pretty unique mini split. It brings fresh air in from outside. What we're doing today is we're going to throw this thing under the test. We're going to take a lot of measurements. We're going to see how well it works. Now, initially, I was just going to do some basic testing, but my wife had some different plans. We brought a puppy home this weekend. He's been having a few accidents, so my wife decided to go nuclear with the cleaning. Vacuuming, carpet cleaners, bleach, floor cleaners, aerosols, air fresheners. And then when she was done with all that, she decided to burn 5 candles, 5 sticks of incense, filled up the whole house with 10 times the pollutant versus all those chemicals from the cleaning. Then she decides to start cooking dinner. Meanwhile, I'm trying to perform air quality tests on this thing while it's raining outside and we're dealing with humidity levels at 93 and 97%. Basically, what we did this weekend is we threw this thing under the most brutal testing you could possibly throw at an ERV. Now, spoiler alert, it didn't pass. I wouldn't expect a small ERV to do that anyway, regardless of what brand it is. But surprisingly, it almost came within acceptable levels, which is saying something for a little tiny ERV with this little tiny filter that was really just meant to handle one room. So here's a snapshot of a CO2 reading I took at the height of all this. You could see it's over 1,700 parts per million. Off on the side here, we have a basic idea on what CO2 levels really mean inside the home. And based on the World Health Organization and EPA and ASHRAE guidelines, 1,700 is very poor quality air. Headaches, discomfort. My wife and I experienced exactly that. We both had headaches last night. So I let the ERV run overnight for about 8 hours or so, and then we rechecked in the morning. Now, this was a little higher than I was hoping for. According to the CO2 standards, it is within an acceptable range. I mean, it is below that 1,000, but I'm not looking for acceptable. I'm looking for healthy. This kind of came up a little short. I don't think it's just this little ERV just wasn't moving enough air to really displace that CO2. So next thing I did was I went outside and I checked one of the big concerns everybody had in one of the first videos I made on this, which is short circuiting, or the airflow where the stale air is leaving and returning and coming right back in. Now, one thing I decided to address right away is you could see in the bottom of this baffle, they have perforations, and I wasn't quite sure why they did that. Just to feel a little bit more comfortable, I just taped off the bottom of that so that our airflow coming in and out is actually traveling out the sides in opposite directions. I then took a CO2 reading of the fresh air outside to kind of get a baseline, and we got 455 ppms, which is exactly what I expect to see. Then I went ahead and tested the intake where the fresh air is coming into the room, and we measured about 463 there. And then went ahead and measured the CO2 being exhausted out of the room on the other side of the baffle. And as you can see, we're up close to about 770 there. So I'm not seeing anything here that tells me short cycling, but I am wondering where the other ppms went, because we were measuring, I think it was 950 in the room, and we're reading 772 out here. So my next step was to go inside and try to get a CO2 reading on the fresh air coming into the room without getting any contamination from the CO2 in the room itself. So that's why you see kind of plastic wrapped around it. I want to make sure the meter is only measuring the fresh air coming in. And as you can see, we're at about 659. Now, what that means for us is that this is just not a high-end ERV. It's more like a run-of-the-mill budget model. But on the positive side, we are definitely bringing in air that is well within the ideal indoor level, or the well-ventilated range, according to World Health Organization, EPA, and all those other guys. What we're pretty much demonstrating here is just realistic expectations. I mean, this is a very small ERV. You do have a kind of a high level of cross-contamination there for like a budget model ERV. So all this really means is that it's just going to take a little longer to clear out major pollution events like we were throwing at it today. Now, as you can see, here we are, maybe a half hour later after I recorded the earlier reading, we're down to 895. So, I mean, it's still going. It's going to get there. I had a CO2 reading of about 600 ppm before this whole nuclear event we threw at it. So it'll get there. It just might take 24, 48, maybe even 72 hours, depending on the severity of the pollution event you're trying to really clean out. Now, it is worth mentioning here that ERVs are not air purifiers. They're not designed to scrub out CO2 or drastically reduce particulate matter, spores, mold, things of that nature. An ERV is designed to create a heat exchange between the fresh air coming in and the stale air going out, so that you can pretty much get fresh air into the room without opening your windows while continuing to run your AC or heating system as efficiently as possible. And that's pretty much all they're designed to do. Now, if you do have enough airflow, it will flush out things like CO2. But with a little header like this, it's just going to take some time. So if you're dealing with wildfire smoke, if you're dealing with severe allergies, you're very sensitive to chemicals, an ERV like this is not what you're looking for. You want an air purifier. Speaking of particulate matter, I decided to go ahead and do a PM2.5 and a PM10 test anyway, just to see how well the filter in this thing is working. Now, PM2.5, that is particulate matter that is 2.5 microns or smaller in size. So these are very small particles. They're small enough to get into your lungs and down into your bloodstream. PM10 are particles that are 10 microns or larger. So we're talking about pollen, mold spores, things of that nature. Now, on the left, you see the outdoor measurements, 8.5 and 13.3. On the right, you see the measurements of the fresh air stream coming out of the unit. And we do definitely see a nice reduction in particulate matter, despite the fact it is a small filter. But again, it's not an air purifier. That said, the air it is delivering is doing a pretty good job, I would say. I mean, it's borderline good or excellent on the PM2.5 and on the PM10. We're pretty much well within that excellent range. So despite the fact it's a really tiny filter, it's working pretty well. Keep ideal indoor standards as far as particulate matter goes. Now, once again, if you're dealing with chronic issues or if you live in an area where this is a real problem outdoors, this little filter might not be enough to do the job. You're still going to have to look at air purifiers and things of that nature. Bigger filters and devices built for purifying air are going to do a much better job of maintaining this under really stressful situations that you might be sensitive to. A smaller ERV like this can keep those numbers pretty decent on, your average low test kind of days where you're just kind of maintaining status quo. But if it's an issue, you want to definitely go with something else. One last thing I want to address is humidity. This is something an ERV should handle pretty well. The whole point is to try to minimize how much humidity we're bringing in from outdoor air during the summertime like now. So the only time I've been running this for about 2 or 3 weeks now nonstop, I've run the ERV as a standalone header just by itself with the system off. I've ran it with air conditioning, and the only time I've really had any problems with elevated humidity in the room was on days like we've had this weekend when we're dealing with rainy weather and 95, 97% relative humidity outdoors. Now, for me, that was a simple solution. Long before I got this system, I already had a large dehumidifier set up in this basement to keep it dry. So simply turning that on removed that humidity level down significantly and made it like a meat locker in here in like 20 minutes. Not even that much. The unit itself maintained set point pretty well. Now, the reason why humidity could be an issue on those really rainy days is because when high efficiency units like this meet their set point, they start to ramp down to lower and lower speeds. And that low airflow, that low compressor running time really starts to draw back on how much humidity it can actually remove from the air. So even though your air conditioning system is a dehumidifier, when it's ramping down close to set point on high SEER units like this one, humidity could sometimes be an issue. That being said, haven't had any humidity problems on other days where it's sunny and humidity is lower, like closer to 70%. But just keep in mind, if you live someplace like Florida where it rains every day and the humidity's nuts, this could require you to add on a separate dehumidifier to handle those particular situations. Don't expect the ERV to do it by itself. Now, in the install video, I mentioned the main attraction I had to this unit was that my personal office and my shop is located in the basement of my home. And when I first moved in, I had a lot of problems with it being a damp basement. It smelled really stale down here. And this unit really attracted me to helping resolve that problem. Now, between this unit and the dehumidifier I bought when I first moved into the house to dry it out, because it was vacant for a couple of months, these two things together for a price of around $1,600 pretty much solved all those problems. The basement is now very comfortable. Most of the time, I feel like the air down here is pretty crisp and clean. And to be honest with you, we turned pretty much the roughest part of the house into one of the most comfortable. So is this a miracle worker? No, it's not. It has its limitations. You just need to realize what it can and can't do. And if you apply it in the right way, this can actually be a beneficial unit. If you're looking for something to address very serious problems like some health issues, you're going to want to go in another direction. If you're interested in a unit like this, there's some links below. You can get a discount. Just use Jersey Mike HVAC. Otherwise, hopefully this informed you enough to make the right decisions if this is not something up your alley.